بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First of all, it's really great to be here in Detroit. I actually have family here. We had our family reunion here, and I don't want to mess up the year. And the year, I think it was 2000. And I was thinking this afternoon, people wanted me to go here and there, and I was in the car. I should go see my aunt, because my mother is one of 13 children, and she only has 2 of her sisters left alive. One is here in Detroit. We call her Aunt Hat. So if I disappear after, I apologize. And it's great to be here back at the Muslim Center. Alhamdulillah, we're here for the Malcolm X program, and then khutbah, well, maybe about a year ago or so. And it's always wonderful to be here, and then to see the effort being made, spearheaded by Brother Mark and his wife and others. So we pray that Allah gives tawfiq. I'd like to couch my remarks around a verse in the Quran that I think is foundational in terms of community building, whether the community is in the hood, or on the hill, in the ville, wherever. So Allah says, وَالَّذِينَ تَبَارُوا الدَّارَ وَالْإِيمَانِ يُحِبُّونَ مَنْ هَاجَرَ إِلَيْهِمْ وَالَّذِينَ تَبَارُوا الدَّارَ وَالْإِيمَانَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ يُحِبُّونَ مَنْ هَاجَرَ إِلَيْهِمْ ولا يجدون في صدورهم حاجة مما أوتوا يؤثرون على أنفسهم ولو كان بهم خصاصة ومن يوق شح نفسه فأولئك هم المفلحون. So Allah says that those who occupy the realm, referring to the Ansar and what would become Medina, initially Yathrib, and they attained the faith, wal-Iman, يُحِبُّونَ مَنْ هَاجَرَ إِلَيْهِمْ. They love those who migrate to them. And so I think the most important part of building a sound community is love. So this is the first quality that Allah mentions, is love. Of course, faith. That's that's what they say, badihi. We don't even need to, axiomatic. So the faith has to be there. That's what brings the people together, is the faith. And the faith has to be strong, because there are many challenges. We gave khutbah here on Friday, not here, in one of the other masjids, but around the subject of al-mu'min al-qawi khayrun wa ahabbu ilallah min al-mu'min al-da'if wa fi kullin khayr. The strong believer. So first and foremost, is better and more beloved to Allah than the weak believer, and in each there is good. So first of all, strong in faith, because every other form of strength, if one is physically strong, intellectually strong, all of those strengths, if they're not preceded and by and rooted in faith, they can be used for evil. So you could be physically strong if there's no faith. You bullying people, extorting them, taking their money. Like, man, give me your money. Give me your money. Turn them upside down, hold them by the neck. All right, you want to give out, take it. Stuff falling out of the pockets. And intellectual strength could be used for deviousness, to turn people away from the path of Allah. So devious ideas, atheism, and all other sorts of stuff that can be rationalized and intellectualized and then used for evil. And so faith is foundational. So the first thing is faith. وَالَّذِينَ تَبَرُّوا الدَّارَ وَالْإِيمَانَ. So they have faith in that realm. يُحِبُّونَ مَنْ هَاجَرَ إِلَيْهِمْ. So they love those who migrate to them. And so I could say, when we really had a very strong community in New Haven, Connecticut, there was a lot of love. Like, people would come there and then they migrate. يُحِبُّونَ مَنْ هَاجَرَ إِلَيْهِمْ. Like, I'm moving here. So we have brothers moving from Chicago. Brother moved up from Brooklyn. Brother moved from Iowa. Because there was love, and that love attracted people, and that love kept people together. And I could say, things moved on, things happened, but there's still a lot of love between many or most of those brothers and sisters. So much so they give their life, and people literally putting their life on the line for their brothers and sisters. Literally. And so, why? Because they love them. If you don't love someone, you're not going to do that. The love also, when you love your blood brother, your parents. You have disagreements, you have beefs even. But it's easy to get over it when there's love. But if there's no love, that little disagreement becomes a big disagreement. And that big disagreement becomes a point of contention. And that point of contention becomes a point of division. And then we split off and separate as opposed to come together. Islam brings the many into one at every different level. And forces that work against Islam bring the one into many. So the love has to be there. The love has to be there. Otherwise, it becomes virtually impossible. Alhamdulillah, there's a lot of love in this room. You can feel it. And that's what's brought us together. And then there has to be hijrah. وَالَّذِينَ تَبَارَأُوا الدَّارَ وَالْإِيمَانَ يُحِبُّونَ مَنْ هَاجَرَ إِلَيْهِمْ. Like I said, people are coming. If the love is there, and that love is palpable, people will move into this community. They say, I want to work with this project. Because there's love there. Like this country, they people, why are these kids, why are they going in and shooting each other? Like the kid in Florida. How much love was in that kid's life? And you think about it. He's given away from by his biological parents for whatever circumstance. But for a child, that rejection is very powerful. And it says one thing, like, those people didn't love me. They're not looking at, they're poor and they want me to have a better life, or, whatever was going on between them, or they just weren't ready, and they thought adoption was better than abortion. But a child doesn't want to hear that. The message to the child is, they don't love me, they didn't love me. And then his adoptive mother dies, who did love him. Now the person who did love me, she's gone. And so there's a lot of pain, and there's a lack of love. And we see it all in these streets, right? These kids running around here, shooting each other. They feel unloved. Who loves me? My boys, my crew, they love me. That's about it. I'm going to die for them. I'm going to kill for them. And I don't care about nobody else. So the love is very important. That's foundational. And when it's there, it attracts people because people are looking for love. Muslims are looking for love. A lot of Muslims are looking for love, especially in our inner city communities, because you have people coming into Islam from those conditions where, people out here, they're not showing me no love. The city's not showing me no love. Look at my school. The gym, the planks are warped from the leaking roof, and they're not even thinking about fixing it. Who's showing me some love? So if Muslims are showing love to people are going to be pulled in, and they're going to be attracted to that, including young people, because young people need love. And we were blessed in that situation in New Haven, the late 80s and into the mid 90s, before I went overseas. We had a lot of high school kids taking Shahada because they were loved by the elders. We actually went, like some of us old people. I was less old then. I'm not old now, I'm older. It's all relative. But I was less old then. We would go with these young kids and confront these gangs. Yeah, a bunch of old, scary looking dudes. Like, hey, don't bother him. And, how do you think that made the kid feel? And so, like, all these young people, they started coming to the masjid. Say, hey, man, they got you back. And then they made their own little crew. Right. And they actually got in some trouble. But they brought too much baggage in. No, this is what happened. Like, one of the girls who was a girlfriend of one of the leaders in the Latin Kings took Shahada, left him, and married one of the young Muslim brothers. And then he didn't like that. And so then they got into some beef with the Latin Kings, and then the Muslims got together, and then they shot the dude, the former boyfriend, like 9 times. Alhamdulillah, he didn't die. But the brother went to prison. It's a long story. But there wasn't much of that. But the bottom line is, though, they were finding love. They were finding love. And because of that, they were coming to the community. So love is very important. And so they make a migration. Because migration isn't just geographical, it's away from evil to good. So, يُحِبُّونَ مَنْ هَاجَرَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ يُحِبُّونَ مَنْ هَاجَرَ إِلَيْهِمْ. They love those who migrate to them. And in our situation, and we see it reflecting in this room, we shouldn't have this immigrant, indigenous kind of animosity. There should be love, and the love is based in our faith. And the love is based in our willingness to sacrifice for each other. So there has to be self-sacrifice. You have to be willing to sacrifice. And that helps to feed the love. Because it's mercy. We have to be merciful. When Allah talks about love, He talks about mercy with love. من آياته أن خلق لكم من أنفسكم أزواجا لتسكنوا إليها وجعل بينكم مودة ورحمة. And He's made between you love and mercy. Because love could be subjective, it could be amorphous, hard to grasp, mean different things to different people, but mercy is objective. And mercy has indicators. And amongst the indicators of mercy is a willingness to sacrifice. Is a willingness to prioritize others. Like Shaitan wants us to be so obsessed with ourselves, we don't even begin to think about others. And that's the kind of situation they're trying to set up. We don't begin to think about others. Everything's about our own selfish gain. Or about our narrow group. The most narrow foundation of our identity. So we all could have a narrow identity, but then we could have a wide identity. Everyone in this room could identify along racial or ethnic lines. Like, I'm a member of this group, and it's true. But then can make that, what Shaitan does, he wants to make that the primary source of identity. So we have those foundations of identity, but then we have a wider Muslim identity. And the fact that we identify, and that should subordinate everything else. That should subordinate everything else. Shaitan wants us to subordinate that Muslim identity that cuts across the racial, ethnic, socio-economic lines, to make that subordinate to the racial, the ethnic, the socio-economic. And the Prophet, again, he taught about that. So, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَنْظُرُ إِلَى صُوَرِكُمْ وَأَمْوَالِكُمْ. Allah doesn't look at your physical forms, nor at your wealth. Shaitan looks at that and tries to use that. Hey, you're physically different from him. Your skin is lighter. Your skin is darker. Your eyes are different. Your hair is different. Allah doesn't care about that. إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَنْظُرُ إِلَى صُوَرِكُمْ وَأَمْوَالِكُمْ. Shaitan looks, so Shaitan uses race, ethnicity to set people apart. That's what's happening in America. Shaitan's taking over. The white identity movement. We're not a nation of immigrants, both voluntary and involuntary. That's an insult to the descendants of Sitting Bull and Red Cloud and who was the little bighorn?
Crazy horse.
Crazy horse.
Crazy horse. That's an insult to their descendants. What you mean you're not a nation of immigrants? Like you just, a piece of Europe just took off like a spaceship in Black Panther and landed on America? But they just took that off of, where's Shemel? Shemel, you in here? He's not, because he told me about it. No, they're just on the National Immigration Service, something. They just took out the phrase, as a nation of immigrants. They took that out. And so we know what that means, and then justifying it, we feel that this is more appropriate for the American people. We know what that means. When they say American people, they're not talking about us. It's no serious, that's dog whistle. And then so what are they saying? It's like, this is a white nationalist state. It's like, you crazy, this isn't Poland. When you got here, there was native people here, there were Africans here.
That's right. That's right.
When you got here. And so, but Shaitan wants to create those divisions. Shaitan looks at wealth. So Shaitan looks at the physical. ما منعك ألا تسجد إذا مرتك قال أنا خير منه خلقتني من نار وخلقته من طين. The physical. I'm better because of my physical composition. You made me from hot fire. You made him from clay. And it's not only physical stuff, it's color. Because the fire is orange and blue and there's some yellow up in there, depending on what you're burning. And what was the color of the clay? It's black clay. But so Shaitan's looking, and Shaitan looks at the economic rather. الشيطان يعظكم الفقر. Shaitan threatens you with poverty. ويأمركم بالفحشاء. So poverty. Well, you're going to be poor. Look at them rich people. Divide them up. And then make the other things subordinate. But Allah says no. That is subordinate. وَلَكِنْ يَنْظُرُوا إِلَى قُلُوبِكُمْ وَعَمَالِكُمْ. But Allah looks at your hearts and He looks at your actions. The hearts are the same color and the actions have no color. And then so we subordinate the foundation of the faith in the heart and the actions of the limbs. We subordinate the wealth and the physical differences to that, not the other way around. And when we can do that, we'll have a vibrant community. Because we'll be able to do what then Allah says, وَلَا يَجِدُونَ فِي صُدُورِهِمْ حَاجَةً مِمَّا أُوتُوا. They find no agitation in their hearts for what those who come in were given. So if one group's given resources over there, they don't care. Say they need it more. So a project like this, there should be ample resources. And no one should be agitated. You know, we could have built an annex to the masjid that's already underused. Right? Why are you giving it to the Dream Project, Dream of Detroit? Because they needed more. And we don't care because we're all believers. And their success is my success. That's why when we break down these barriers, all of this nonsense just disappears. Like people, you know, our ancestors built the pyramids. You know, the Hotep crew. You like, man, well, maybe your enemies have a point if you got to go back 3,000 years to find some accomplishment. But when we human beings, All of our ancestors built the pyramids. All of our ancestors built the Parthenon. All of our ancestors built the blue mosque and the red mosque and the Hamra. All of our ancestors put a man on the moon. You're a human being. This is a culmination of the march of human civilization. And so all that nonsense disappears. We're all human beings. We start feeling bad. Yeah, what have we done since the pyramids? And then they take Islam out. So you take Islam out of African history, you're going to be hard pressed. But you take the Islam out, so you take out Mali, you take out Mansa Musa, you take out 1 million manuscripts in Timbuktu, like Sheikh Hamza mentioned last night, that they haven't even begun to read, to even begin to encompass the depth of the knowledge in astronomy, in science, in language, even in deen specifically. We don't know the depth of the legal thinking. We know we have a hint. When Ahmed Bamba was exiled by the Moroccans, the only people who could attend his class from Timbuktu and then went to Marrakesh, the only people who could attend his class was the muftis and the qadis. The ordinary people, or Abdurrahman al-Tamimi goes from Azhar to Timbuktu to teach, and he sits in a class, he's like, man, I can't teach here. So he goes to Morocco and studies more for another few years, then comes back after he prepared himself to rise to that level. But if you take all of that out, then you're at the mercy of the people who interpret that history you don't know for you. You take Islam out of African history, there's no non-European record of the accomplishment of Africans. Because any history that was written, it was written in Arabic in the African script, or it was written in the African language in the Arabic script, which was a gift of Islam. And so any indigenous history is going to be written in Arabic. So you take that out, you have to rely on what European scholars and Orientalists interpret for you. But Islam just takes all of that away. You're a human being, your ancestors built the pyramids. Whether you're brown, black, white, red, yellow, purple, green, polka dot, spotted, striped. Some striped brothers. Your ancestors built the pyramid. Your ancestors established ancient Greek. Your ancestors took what the Greeks took from Egypt. Your ancestors built Egypt. Your ancestors as human beings built those African Islamic empires. Your ancestors did the Aztec and the Incas and the Mayans. If you're a human being. Now, if you're a Martian or something, you should start feeling sad. If you go back to Mars, you might get a nice boost. Like, my ancestors built that crater. We're a human family. This is what Islam is telling us. We're a human family. And as a human family, when we come together with love, and we have the ability to prioritize, like you need it, like we give the stories, right? Oh, and it's a true story that the soldiers in one battle, that I forget the names, they were dying of thirst. Someone brought water to the first one. He said, no, my brother needs it more. And they took it, no, my brother needs it more. And when they got back to the first one, he had expired from thirst. So we read the stories, right? But when it comes time to give preference to others, to give the water to others, then we become hesitant. But alhamdulillah, we had people that, I'm not going to say any names, when we were in New Haven, we had people that were willing to give preference to what we were doing in the inner city community over their own suburban communities. And when we bring those two sources together, that's when we have a healthy community. We have different realities. Islam always recognizes that. Right? Malcolm was blown away at the Hajj. He saw all these people together, but he said they all were congregating with their own, the Bosnians with the Bosnians, and people from Nigeria with the Nigerians. But they were all together in one solid community for one goal. And that goal was defined by Islam. And so when we bring people together, we can accomplish amazing things. But we have to have the ability to give preference and not be agitated. وَيُؤْثِرُونَ عَلَىٰ وَلَا يَجِدُونَ فِي صُدُورِهِمْ حَاجَةً مِمَّا أُوتُوا. I don't need it. They need it more. Let them have it. You know, people are struggling with incredible conditions. And those conditions include a lack of adequate resources. And we've been blessed with surplus resources. Why shouldn't we share? That's how you create love between people. Alhamdulillah, we are able to do that. In Oakland at the Lighthouse Mosque, there's some visionary young folks at two particular suburban communities. And over the last, I would say, 3 years, we've given away over $300,000 in zakat in the inner city area. When we were in a rental space and we bought the masjid, the property shot up. We fundraised, we raised about $250,000, $60,000. Property rates went up. Now you can't get anything less than $500,000. One brother, anonymously came and wrote a check for $300,000. Here, go buy the mosque. One brother. Bismillah. You know, that builds love and appreciation and respect. And so we can do great things when we come together, but there's a foundation. وَلَا يَجِدُونَ فِي صُدُورِهِمْ حَاجَةً مِمَّا أُوتُوا وَيُؤْثِرُونَ عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ وَلَوْ كَانَ بِهِمْ خَصَاصَةٌ. And they give preference to others even though they themselves have serious needs. They have serious needs, but they recognize, I'm in bad shape, but you're in worse shape. You take it. And this is all of these qualities Shaitan's trying to rid from our hearts. He's trying to take the love away. He's trying to take the ability to sacrifice for each other. He's trying to take the ability to give preference to each other. Like if you can't have a marriage if you can't give preference to your spouse. You can't have a marriage, everything is my way or the highway. That's just the way I am. You don't like it, you could just leave. Like, what kind of discourse is that for a spouse that Allah said He's made between them love too? So that's just how I am. You knew who I was when you married me. You don't like me talking all the time. You should have married that choir sister. I'm talking. That's how I am. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. وَيُؤْثِرُونَ عَلَى أَنفُسِهِمْ. They give preference to others. وَلَوْ كَانَ بِهِمْ خَصَاصَةٌ. Even though they themselves have serious needs. And so then it comes back from the communal to the individual. Because at the end of the day, it's all predicated on individuals. And Islam has never neglected the individual in terms of implementing its social vision. And so when we look at even changing society, we have to work at the structural level, but also at the individual level. Because if we say like the cops are racist, police is a racist institution, it rose out of slavery, okay, and we make these structural changes and policy changes, but we don't change the racist families producing the racists that are going into the police force. What are those structural changes going to do? It just make a cop feel more guilty when he shoots a brother. Because, I know that's against policy. I'm going to fix this. But you need both. Because there are societal, educational things. I mean, you look at cultural influences. Like, what are young people growing up with on the radio? Right, that's why people are so happy at Black Panther. We get to see positive African American and African images on the screen. Instead of a bunch of pimps and whatever. And women made up and distorted. And men wearing dresses. Tried to get Dave Chappelle to wear a dress. Dave told him, I ain't that crazy. And so you see dignified people as opposed to that. But why is it so much buzz and so much talk? Because the system has been pumping so much negativity that even a little bit of positivity is like, wow, subhanAllah. So the individual has to change. Then we have to challenge ourselves as individuals. We have to challenge other members we share this society with as individuals. And so when strong individuals come together, they can make strong families. And strong families come together, they can make strong communities. But if the individual retains certain baggage and propensities and proclivities, and they're not addressed, it becomes very challenging to keep our families together. It becomes very challenging to keep our communities together. And so Allah ends on the individual note. وَمَن يُوقَ شُحَّ نَفْسِهِ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. That those whosoever can avoid the inherent stinginess of their soul. So it's saying, like, we have some things, inclinations, that we have to overcome in order to be successful. Those are أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. Those are they who succeed. And so, in imagining a prophetic community, those are the qualities the Prophet ﷺ emphasized. Those are the qualities the Quran emphasizes. And once we're able to establish the love, once we're able to have the courage to make that step to migrate, once we have the ability to give preference to others and to prioritize their well-being and their interests, then we have the ability to check ourselves and to realize Islam challenges us. Like we have, because, now, I'm telling you, I have to be honest. Look how strong our grandparents were. Like physically strong, emotionally strong. But they had to deal with a lot of nonsense. And they had to control their anger. Because you got angry, you could get killed. Oh, you one of them belligerent. Like surgery with no anesthesia and just dealing with it. Like we were talking recently, my own mother-in-law, just big, huge cyst, can't even lay down in the bed to sleep, sleeping upright in a chair, crying all night, never took one pain medicine. I don't even think she took an aspirin. Alhamdulillah, she's better now. But we're talking about others. Like someone I know, their mother had cancer. And the doctor, the oncologist, amazed. Like, you want something for the pain? She's like, no. And just you see her smiling, but in pain. Because they were strong. This thing wants to make us into a bunch of punks. Can't deal with anything. Then tell you, whoever, some agency gonna help you. The agency ain't gonna help you. Trump defunded that agency. It don't even exist anymore. They set you up. Nah, the nation had it right.
That's right.
Do for self.
That's right.
Do for self. Now, our communities, we have to be prepared to tough it out. And Allah will bring relief. But how we go into it, we have to be strong. This world is not, it's not the abode for weak people. You know, Darwin got that part right. The strong survive. So we have to be strong people. Al-mu'min al-qawi, the strong believer. خير وحب الله من المؤمن الضعيف وفي كل خير. And there's good in each. احرص على من ينفعك. Strive for those things which benefit you. Strive for those things which benefit you. And so in building a community, we have to strive to benefit ourselves. And it's beautiful to see garden. That's self-benefit. Communal garden, growing our food. Coming together to protect each other. Maintaining a beautiful public space like the masjid. It's beauty. You outside and inside. You drive by, mashallah. These people, they don't even know Arabic. And mashallah, what's that? That's the mosque. It's beautiful. You go inside, it's clean. There's history. Like we're in history. You might say jazz is haram. You didn't get the fatwa back in the day. But you can't deny there's history, there's culture, there's roots. There's something to connect you to a reality that transcends your current condition. Right? There's history of Islam in Detroit. And so this effort is just a continuation of that history. But the beautiful thing about it, Detroit and Islam, you read old Islam in Detroit. And you look at that community, one of the sparks for that first really identifiable Muslim community before the Nation of Islam was Dusay Muhammad. Now, when you start looking at Dusay Muhammad as a pivotal figure in the history of Islam in Detroit, you immediately become connected to the world. Because Dusay Muhammad started his journey in Egypt. And then he goes to London. And in London, he starts a Pan-Africanist newspaper. And one of his mentees is Marcus Garvey. And so Marcus Garvey, who starts one of the most influential African-American organizations, the United Negro Improvement Association in Harlem, was mentored by a Muslim. Garvey's from Jamaica. Garvey goes from Jamaica to London. Dusay Muhammad goes from Egypt to London. He mentors Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey goes from London to Harlem, and then he starts the United Negro Improvement Association. And you study that, you can see the Islam in there, even though it wasn't formally Islamic. Dusay Muhammad goes to Detroit. And then he links up with the like of Khalil Bazi, who was a relative of Sister Najah Bazi, and others. So they have Iraqis, African Americans, Syrians, Lebanese, and they form an Islamic, I think the Universal Islamic Association, something like that, right here in Detroit. So they're building a community around these elements, many of whom are right here in this room, in the 1920s and 30s. And then you have the history of the Nation of Islam, and this building reality is a direct result of that history, and now you have it coming together. See, this project is the beginning of it all coming together. And that's what Dr. Sherman Jackson was talking about when he said the third resurrection. You had the first resurrection, the second resurrection, then you had the third resurrection, where it all comes together. But it comes together as a culmination of that history of the Nation of Islam, and then the work of Imam Warthuddin Muhammad. Rahimahumullah, may Allah have mercy on all of them. And then that history of those various communities, Lebanese and Yemeni and Iraqi, coming together, and then it all comes together. And so for that history to be real and to reach its true flowering and its full potential, it has involved all of everybody. And that's the prophetic community, because that prophetic community involved everybody, even though it had its foundation. It involved the Arabs, Prophet himself, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Ali. It involved the Africans, Bilal, Ayman. Ayman was also Ethiopian. Baraka al-Habashiyah. It involved the Asians, Salman al-Farisi. It involved the Europeans, Suhaib al-Rumi. And they came together and they built the first prophetic community. And so what's happening now, we have to come together and build one here in Detroit. And that's how I see the dream of Detroit, the fulfillment of a big dream of a lot of people, the fulfillment of the du'as of a lot of people with many different histories and many different roots. So may Allah give us tawfiq. I'm going to sit down and shut up for a minute. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.